Hello, dear DSC candidates. Welcome back to my Grammar for Success channel. I am Koresh Babu, a retired lecturer in English from Hyderabad. In this video, I am once again bringing to your mind the key revision points about the road not taken and a slumber did my spirit seal. I therefore request all of you to pay a very good attention to this video till the end without skipping it in the middle. I also request all of you to consider subscribing to my channel and also sharing this video with all your friends who are also going to take the DSC examination very shortly along with you. Thank you so much. Now let's get into the video. The road not taken. This is a very beautiful poem written by Robert Frost. So in this video, I am going to give you some very important key points or revision points about this poem. Now, let us first of all learn about the poet himself. Okay, about the poet Robert Frost. Number one, Robert Frost was a leading American poet. You know very well, he was a leading means a celebrated or a renowned or a popular American poet. That's the first point. And the second point here is he is known for what? Realistic depictions of rural life. That means he was well known for realistic. Realistic means what? Lifelike or true or real depictions. Depictions means what? Descriptions or portrayals of what? Rural life. Because Robert Frost likes very much the rural life, and most of his lifetime he lived in the rural areas or in the countryside, and that's why he has a great liking for this rural life, and therefore he has dealt with this rural life only in almost all his poems, and therefore you can find in his poetry all the realistic depictions of rural life. గ్రామీణ జీవితం యొక్క నిజమైనటువంటి వర్ణనలు అందులో కనిపిస్తుంటాయి. అందుకతడు సుప్రసిద్ధమైనటువంటి వాడు. He was a known person for that. Okay, and you go to the next important point. He was the 4-time Pulitzer Prize winner. He received this Pulitzer Prize for 4 times consecutively. That means every year, like that, 4 years he received this Pulitzer Prize. Do you know anything about this Pulitzer Prize? This Pulitzer Prize is a great award that is given to those persons who make outstanding contributions in the field of journalism, in the field of arts, in the field of literature. So anybody who makes an outstanding contribution in the field of journalism, in the field of literature, in the field of arts, that person will be bestowed upon this Pulitzer Prize. And here this Robert Frost received this prestigious Pulitzer Prize for 4 times consecutively. Consecutively means every year. That means 4 years, 4 prizes. Like that, every year he got one Pulitzer Prize, like that for 4 years. And here that is the important point about Robert Frost. And you move on to the next one. He used simple language to express complex ideas. So in order to express complex ideas, complex means very difficult ideas, very tough ideas, he has made use of very simple language. If you have read his poetry, you can easily understand. You don't need the assistance or the guidance of any other teacher. That means you can read and understand his poetry on your own. You can read the poetry and you can understand the poetry on your own. So that easy his poetry will be, because he has made use of very simple language in his poetry, all in his poetical works. And you move on to the next important point. He often explored themes of choice. So explored means he has often dealt with themes of choice. Choice means very well, you attempt this question or this question. Between 2 questions there is some choice. So choice is there, very well about this choice. So here his poetry deals with the themes of choice. It also deals with nature, and it also deals with human psychology, human thinking. అతని యొక్క కవిత్వం అంతా కూడాను ఇగో చాయిసెస్తో ఒక థీమ్స్తోని, నేచర్ యొక్క థీమ్స్తోని, హ్యూమన్ సైకాలజీ యొక్క థీమ్స్తోని సాగిపోతూ ఉంటుంది. ఆయన కవితలు ఏవి తీసుకున్నా యూ కెన్ ఫైండ్ సచ్ kind of themes. Okay, and you move on to the next important point, and he was a modern poet with a traditional style. So this Robert Frost was what? A modern poet. He was called a modern poet, but with a traditional style. Traditional means what? Old fashioned style, or outdated style, or outmoded style. What was the traditional style? Maintaining a strict rhyme scheme and maintaining meter. So these two things, the present day poets cannot maintain a rhyme and also meter, because that is very tough for them, that's very difficult for them. But he was a modern poet, but he maintained the traditional style of writing poetry, maintaining rhyme and meter. So in this way, these are all very important points that can be kept in our mind for the forthcoming DSC examination. Now let's move on to learn about the poem itself. About the poem, okay, some very important points or revision points here I am mentioning. Okay, you please pay a very good attention to all of them. Okay, here the road not taken, this is the title of the poem, is a symbolic poem. Symbolic poem is a representative poem. Okay, representative of what? About life's choices. Life's choices and their consequences. This poem is all about life's choices and their consequences. That means if you make good choices, you will have a bright future. If you make bad choices, you will have very bad future and all that. So according to the choices you make, according to the decisions you take, your future will largely depend. నువ్వు తీసుకునే చాయిసెస్ని బట్టి నీ భవిష్యత్ ఆధారపడి ఉంటుంది. ఇఫ్ యూ మేక్ ఏ గుడ్ చాయిస్, యువర్ లైఫ్ విల్ బి బ్రైట్. ఇఫ్ యూ మేక్ ఏ బ్యాడ్ చాయిస్, యువర్ లైఫ్ విల్ బి very unhappy, very sad and all that. So that's why this poem is all about life's choices and their consequences. Life lo తీసుకునే choices, వాటి యొక్క మరి కాన్సిక్వెన్సెస్, రిజల్ట్స్ గురించి చెప్పేదే ఈ యొక్క రోడ్ నాట్ టేకెన్ పోయం. ఓకేనా, రైట్. యూ మూవ్ ఆన్ టు ద నెక్స్ట్ పాయింట్. హియర్ ద పోయెట్ కమ్స్ టు ఎ ఫోర్క్ ఇన్ ఎ ఫారెస్ట్ పాత్ అండ్ మస్ట్ చూస్ వన్ ఆఫ్ ద రోడ్స్. యు నో వెరీ వెల్ అబౌట్ దిస్ పోయం. One day, this Robert Frost happens to walk in some forest. He was walking at random. He has no any purpose or he has no any goal, and but he was walking in that forest, and after walking some distance, what happened? He has come to a fork. Fork means the place where the road is divided into two branches. He reaches that spot where the road on which he is walking has become diverged or divided into two. And here the poet has stood. This is the poet. So far he has walked on this way, on this single road. But at one point what happened now? The road has become diverged. The road has become divided into two. This is therefore called a fork. ఆ ఫోర్క్ దగ్గరికి వచ్చేసాడు. ఇటొక రోడ్డు పోతుంది, ఇటొక రోడ్డు పోతుంది. అండ్ నౌ ఈజ్ ఇన్ ఎ డైలమా, ఈజ్ ఇన్ ఎ కన్ఫ్యూజన్ యాజ్ టు విచ్ రోడ్ టు టేక్ అప్, whether to take up this road or this road. So he was in a confusion. That's what here it is mentioned. The poet comes to a fork in a forest path. This is the forest path. He comes to this fork and must choose one of two roads. Any one of these two roads he has to choose, because he cannot walk on both of them. రెంటిడి మీద నడవడం కుదరదు కాబట్టి ఏదో ఒక రోడ్డు టేకప్ చేయాలి. మరి ఏ రోడ్డు తీసుకోవాలి, ఏ రోడ్ టేకప్ చేయాలి? ఇట్స్ రియల్లీ వెరీ డిఫికల్ట్ థింగ్. In the life also, you happen to face some choices like this. You have to make a meaningful choice. If you make a meaningful choice or very good choice, your future will be very bright, very happy and all that. If you make a bad choice, what happens? You will have a bad future and unhappy future and all that. And that is why this tells us that in the life of man also, man faces this kind of situation. At that time, what does this man do? Whether to make this choice or this choice, what to make? So here this poet one day Yes, he walks along the forest path, and at last he comes to a fork. That means the place where the road is divided into two, and he must choose one of the two roads. One of them he has to choose. So that point is explained here, and you move on to the next one. Both paths appear similar. So this path is similar, and this path is similar. Both paths means both ways look to be similar, look to be alike. రెండు దారులు ఒకటేలాగా అనిపిస్తున్నాయి, అడవిలో రెండు దారులు ఒకటేలాగా అనిపిస్తున్నాయి. దెన్ వాట్ ఈస్ దో వన్ సీమ్స్ స్లైట్లీ లెస్ torn, సో బట్ వన్ ఆఫ్ దెమ్ లుక్స్ టు బి స్లైట్లీ మీన్స్ వాట్, సమ్వాట్, కొంచెము, వాట్, లెస్ ట్రావెల్డ్. ఈ రెండు మార్గాలు దాదాపు ఒకలాగా ఉంటున్నాయి, కాకపోతే ఒక్కటి మాత్రం దీంట్లో ఒకటి లెస్ ట్రావెల్డ్, ఇట్ ఈస్ లుకింగ్ స్లైట్లీ లెస్ ట్రావెల్డ్. లెస్ worn మీన్స్ లెస్ ట్రావెల్డ్. ఇందులో ఒకటి మాత్రము తక్కువ నడవబడినటువంటిదిగా, తక్కువ జనము చేత నడవబడినటువంటిదిగా, తక్కువ వాడబడినటువంటిదిగా అది ఆ కవికి గోచరిస్తూ ఉంది. సో దట్ ఈస్ ద పాయింట్. నౌ యు మూవ్ ఆన్ టు ద నెక్స్ట్ వన్. హీ చూసెస్ ద సెకండ్. This is the first way, first path. This is the second path, and the poet has at last decided to take up this second path, and thinking he might return to try the other, and thinking that he would try this first road or the first path some other day. ఈ దారిని అతడు చేపడుతూ అనుకుంటున్నాడు, మళ్ళీ ఎప్పుడైనా వచ్చినప్పుడు ఈ దారిలో వెళ్తానులే అనుకుంటూ he has taken up the second way, second path, but knows he likely never will. But knows he likely never will means he knows pretty well that he cannot come back to this spot again, and he cannot walk this path. తిరిగి అతడి ఇక్కడికి రాలేను అని, ఈ మొదటి మార్గం మీద నడవలేను అని అతనికి తెలిసినప్పటికీ మళ్ళీ ఎప్పుడైనా వచ్చినప్పుడు దాని మీద నడదాంలే అనుకుంటూ he has taken up the second path. You know that very well, right? And now you move on to other important points. The other important points of the poem are these things. So in the future, he imagines, he will say his choice made all the difference. So in the future, he thinks he would say, in the future, he thinks he would say that his choice has made all the difference. అతడు భవిష్యత్తులో రాబో తరముల వారికి చెప్పాలనుకుంటున్నాడు that his choice has made all the difference. It has made some difference. What is that difference? Whether it has made a positive difference or a negative difference, that thing is not mentioned in the poet, but somehow or on the whole some difference that his choice has made. So that is what this poet tells us here. We move on to the next important point. The poem explores choice. That means the poem deals with choice and its consequences. This poem deals with choices in life and their consequences also, right? Consequences means results or repercussions, ఫలితాలు, దాని యొక్క పర్యవసానాలు, something like that, without stating clearly whether the choice was better or worse. Then but here this poet is not mentioning anything clearly whether the choice he has made is better or worse. తాను తీసుకున్న చాయిస్ వల్ల మరి అతనికి మంచి జరిగిందా చెడు జరిగిందా అనేది మాత్రము మనకు క్లియర్గా అతగాడు చెప్పడం లేదు, కానీ అది తన జీవితంలో ఒక డిఫరెన్స్ ను చేసుకొచ్చింది అంటున్నాడు. డిఫరెన్స్ అంటే వెదర్ ఇట్ ఈస్ ఎ పాజిటివ్ డిఫరెన్స్ ఆర్ ఎ నెగటివ్ డిఫరెన్స్, ఓకే, వెదర్ ఇట్ ఈస్ బెటర్ డిఫరెన్స్ ఆర్ వర్స్ డిఫరెన్స్, దట్ వీ డోంట్ నో. సో the poet has left that to our discretion, to our thinking, because when you take up a new road, what happens, definitely you will be facing some problems. The less traveled means automatically you understand it is a new road, it's a less traveled road, it's a less used road. Definitely that road must have some problems on that. అందరు నడిచిన బాటలో ఎలాంటి ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ ఉండవు, ఎందుకంటే అది అందరు నడిచిన బాట. ఈ సెకండ్ది కొద్ది మంది నడిచినట్టుగానే ఉంది, తక్కువ మంది నడిచినట్టుగా ఉంది. మరి ఇలా తక్కువ మంది నడిచినప్పుడు అలాంటి కొత్త రోడ్డు, అలాంటి కొత్త మార్గంలో పోతే కొన్ని కష్టాలు ఎదురవుతాయి. కాబట్టి అతనికి ఒక నెగటివ్ డిఫరెన్సే వచ్చిందని మనం గెస్ చేయవచ్చును. దట్స్ ఓన్లీ అవర్ గెస్, బట్ ఇట్ ఈస్ నాట్ ఏ కాంక్రీట్ గెస్, బట్ ఇట్స్ ఓన్లీ అన్ అబ్స్ట్రాక్ట్ గెస్, దట్స్ ఆల్. అలా అనుకుంటున్నాం, ఇట్స్ ఓన్లీ అన్ ఇమాజినరీ థింగ్, దట్స్ ఆల్, రైట్? అండ్ నౌ యూ మూవ్ ఆన్ టు ద నెక్స్ట్ వన్. ద రోడ్ లెస్ traveled taken by the poet symbolizes individuality. So here the poet has taken up the less traveled road, and that less traveled road, the decision to take up the less traveled road tells us about the individuality of the ఆ పోయట్ తక్కువ మంది చేత నడబడిన దారిని ఎంచుకోవడము అనేది ఈ కవి యొక్క ఇండివిజువాలిటీ గురించి చెబుతోంది. నీ ముందు 2 చాయిసెస్ ఉన్నాయి. విచ్ ఎవర్ యూ వాంట్ టు టేక్, దట్ టెల్స్ అదర్స్ అబౌట్ యువర్ పర్సనాలిటీ, అబౌట్ యువర్ ఇండివిజువాలిటీ. నువ్వు తీసుకునే ఛాయిస్ని బట్టి నీ పర్సనాలిటీ అనేది ఏమిటో అవతల వ్యక్తికి అర్థమవుతుంటుంది. అదర్ పీపుల్ నో, ద అవుట్ సైడర్స్ విల్ అండర్స్టాండ్ వాట్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ పర్సనాలిటీ, వాట్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ ఇండివిజువాలిటీ యూ హ్యావ్. ఓకే, ఆన్ సీయింగ్ ద చాయిస్ యు ఆర్ మేకింగ్. నువ్వు తీసుకునే ఛాయిస్ని బట్టి అవతల వాళ్ళు నువ్వు ఎలాంటి వ్యక్తివి, నీ క్యారెక్టర్ ఏంటిది, నీ ఇండివిజువాలిటీ ఏంటిది, నీ పర్సనాలిటీ ఏంటిది, అలాంటివన్నీ గెస్ చేసేస్తుంటారు. నువ్వు చూసే సీరియల్స్ని బట్టి, నువ్వు చూసే సినిమాలను బట్టి నేను గెస్ చేయరా ప్రజలు? మనం చేసే పనులను బట్టి మనల్ని ఊరికనే గెస్ చేస్తారు. పీపుల్ విల్ డిసైడ్ అవర్ personality and our character, our individuality and all that. So here, what is that? Here the road less traveled will symbolize the individuality of the poet. లెస్ ట్రావెల్డ్ రోడ్ను టేకప్ చేసినటువంటి కవికి ఉన్నటువంటి ఇండివిజువాలిటీ ఏమిటో ఇది టేకప్ చేయడమే. ఈ లెస్ ట్రావెల్డ్ రోడ్ను టేకప్ చేయడం ద్వారా అతని యొక్క పర్సనాలిటీ ఏమిటో, అతని యొక్క ఇండివిజువాలిటీ ఏమిటో అది చెప్పకనే చెబుతూ ఉంది. సో దేర్ ఫోర్ దిస్ లెస్ ట్రావెల్డ్ రోడ్ ఈజ్ సింబలైజింగ్ is the poet's individuality, right? And you move on to the next one. The poem reflects on how choices define our future. You know, choices will decide our future. If you take a good choice, your life will be better. If you take a bad choice, then it will bring you bad luck and your life will be very unhappy and all that. So here, choices define our future. చాయిసెస్ అనేవి మన భవిష్యత్తును నిర్ణయిస్తుంటాయి. కాబట్టి మంచి చాయిసెస్ తీసుకుంటే నీ జీవితం మంచిగా ఉంటుంది, చెడు చాయిసెస్ తీసుకుంటే నీ జీవితం చెడ్డగానే ఉంటుంది, అన్హ్యాపీగా ఉంటుంది. దట్ పాయింట్ యూ హ్యావ్ టు అండర్స్టాండ్ ఫ్రమ్ దిస్. అండ్ యూ మూవ్ ఆన్ టు ద నెక్స్ట్ వన్. ఇట్ ఎండ్స్ విత్ ఎ సెన్స్ ఆఫ్ అంబిగ్విటీ. యు నో, దిస్ పోయం ఎండ్స్ విత్ ఎ సెన్స్ ఆఫ్ అంబిగ్విటీ. అంబిగ్విటీ మీన్స్ uncertainty or vagueness, because nothing is clearly mentioned. Whether the poet has been happy with his decision or unhappy with his decision, that is not mentioned anywhere. That's why there is a kind of ambiguity in the poem. తను తీసుకున్న చాయిస్ వల్ల అతడు హ్యాపీగా ఉన్నాడా, అన్హ్యాపీగా ఉన్నాడా అనేది మనకెటు తెలవడం లేదు ఈ పోయంలో. దేర్ ఫోర్ ఇట్ ఈస్ throwing a sense of ambiguity to the readers and quiet reflection. So you have to quietly reflect on that. Quietly means calmly you have to think about that. ఎవరు నడవని, ఎక్కువ మంది నడవని దారిని చేపట్టిందంటే కొన్ని కష్టాలు ఎదురైనట్టుగా ఉన్నాయి, కాబట్టి అతని చాయిస్ అన్హ్యాపీగా ఉండింది అని మనం గెస్ చేయవచ్చు అంతే. దట్స్ ఆల్. వీ హ్యావ్ టు క్వైట్లీ రిఫ్లెక్ట్ ఆన్ దట్. దట్స్ ఆల్. బట్ నో వేర్ ఇట్ ఈస్ మెన్షన్డ్ యూ కెన్ ఫైండ్ ఓన్లీ అంబిగ్విటీ, uncertainty, right? So in this way, these are all the important points about the poem The Road Not Taken. And now let us learn a few more things about this poem. Themes of the poem. What are the themes of the poem? Okay, here the main theme of this poem will be choices and consequences. Okay, this is the major theme of this poem, The Road Not Taken. Choices and their consequences. Choices, nirnayalu, and వాటి యొక్క పర్యవసానాలు. So this must be the major theme of the poem The Road Not Taken. And here individualism. Through your choices, the other people will understand your character, all about your individualism and personality and all that. And that's why this individualism can also be the theme of this poem, right? And one more, uncertainty in life. So here, this can also be the theme of this poem. So uncertainty of life, because in the life what happens, whenever you make some choice, that might prove to be happy and fruitful, or that might prove to be unhappy and non-fruitful also. So when your choice proves to be unhappy and when your choice proves to be non-fruitful, then you have to suffer a lot. And that's why here uncertainty in life. Therefore in life we are supposed to face so many choices. We have to make so many choices. We have to take so many decisions. So that all depends on our discretion, on our deep thinking and all that. So that's why it's all uncertainty. Right. Any one of them can be the theme of the poem. And now you move on to learn about the tone. What is the tone of this poem? Reflective. You know very well. It is all reflective. Reflective means contemplative, thoughtful or meditative. ఆలోచించే ఆలోచనకు పదును పెట్టేటటువంటిది. Because when there are two roads in front of you, you have to think about that, whether to take up the first road or the second road. So this poem is making you think about whenever you happen to choose between two choices. So that's why the tone of this poem is reflective, and it is also contemplative. Contemplative means again thoughtful and meditative, and slightly melancholic. Melancholic means sad or dejected. Okay, dejected or unhappy. Very simple speaking, unhappy. So here the tone of the poem is reflective or contemplative or slightly melancholic. Slightly melancholic means somewhat melancholic, means somewhat sad and unhappy. And you move on to the rhyme scheme of the poem. What is the rhyme scheme of the poem? AB, AAB. Please you follow only this rhyme scheme, because this is authentic. And in the exercise, sometimes it might be wrongly given. So even if it is wrongly given, if you know this one correctly, then you can correct it on your own. Please do that. So rhyme scheme is AB, AAB in each of the four stanzas. In this poem there are four stanzas, and in each stanza you can find AB, AAB rhyme scheme. Okay, and with this the key revision points about the road not taken will come to an end. And now we are going to take up the next poem, that is a slumber did my spirit seal. Okay, and let us learn about that beautiful poem written by William Wordsworth. Okay, and the second poem I have taken up in this video is a slumber did my spirit seal. Okay, and this is also a very beautiful poem, a very interesting poem written by William Wordsworth. And now I would like to talk to you a few very important things about the poet of this poem. Okay, and here you pay attention about the poet William Wordsworth. Right, and here William Wordsworth was a central figure in the English Romantic movement. So in this English Romantic movement, he was the central figure, and all of you know pretty well about that. He was a nature poet. He was a worshipper of nature. Okay, he believed in the spiritual connection between man and nature. And here this William Wordsworth believes in the spiritual connection. Spiritual means what? Divine or unworldly connection between man and nature. That means he says that between man and nature there is what? Some spiritual connection, because man comes from nature and man goes back into nature. So there is some deep link between man and nature. So therefore, this man is linked with this nature. Nature means again God, and again divinity, whatever you can say. William Wordsworth says that there is a spiritual connection between man and nature. Right, you move on to the next one. He focused on emotion. You know very well, he concentrated only on emotions. So in all his poetry you can find emotions only. So he tells us all about his emotions, emotional feelings and all that. And here he also focused on memory. Memory means very well, the poem Daffodils. So that poem was written based on the memory of the poet. So remembering that scene of daffodils, he wrote that poem after 2 years. You know that very well. And that's why he focuses on emotion, he focuses on memory, he also focuses on the beauty of natural world, because he was a great lover of beauty. He was a great worshipper of beauty, and that's why what happens he dealt with only beauty in his poetry. If you read his poetry, you can find emotions, you can find memory, you can find beauty of the natural world. And here you pay attention, he wrote in simple natural language. This is yet another important aspect of this William Wordsworth. He wrote in simple natural word. I wandered lonely as a cloud. The poem Daffodils begins like this. I wandered lonely as a cloud, high over the vales and valleys. So this is such a simple poem. You too can read and understand. And that's why he wrote in simple language and natural language, quite natural. That's why you will be able to read and understand his poetry on your own. నీ సొంతంగా అతడి కవిత్వాన్ని చదివి అర్థం చేసుకోగలుగుతావు. That simple it is. And here often explored themes of loss. And here he talks up in his poetry all about the themes of loss, all about childhood, all about the passage of time. So about these three things he talks or he writes in his poetry. His poetry deals with the theme of loss. He loses some on what can I say, some beloved person. So about that loss he writes in his poetry. About his childhood he writes in his poetry. About the passage of time, the passing away of time, he writes in his poetry. So here, therefore, in his poetry you can find the theme of loss, the theme of childhood, and the theme of passage of time. So this is all about William Wordsworth, and these are the very important points about this great romantic poet William Wordsworth. And now let's move on to learn about the poem written by William Wordsworth, that is A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal. Okay, and now let's move on to the next slide about the poem. Okay, now I'm going to talk to you some very important points about the poem, right? And here the poem, that is A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal, is a very brief, means very succinct, but profound meditation on death. So this is a poem which deals with the meditation on death, because in this poem he is meditating on the death of his beloved. Death is a part and parcel of human life. Just as birth is a part and parcel of human life, death is also a part and parcel of this human life. So in this poem, he is dealing with death. He is writing about the death of his beloved. And here it speaks of a girl. So this poem speaks of a girl. Perhaps that is none other than Lucy. You know very well, William Wordsworth has created a character called Lucy, a beautiful girl. And here this he speaks of a girl. Perhaps she might be Lucy. బహుశా ఆమె లూసీ అయి ఉండవచ్చును. And who is now part of nature. Who is now part of nature means now she has merged with nature. She is now no more. She has merged with nature. ప్రకృతిలో కలిసిపోయిందంటే ఆమెక లేదు. దట్ ఇస్ ద మీనింగ్. సో ప్రకృతితో కలిసిపోయినటువంటి ఇగో ఆ యొక్క అమ్మాయి గురించి ఈ యొక్క పోయంలో విలియం వర్డ్స్వర్త్ మాట్లాడుతూ ఉన్నాడు, రైట్? అండ్ యూ మూవ్ ఆన్ టు ద నెక్స్ట్ వన్. ద పోయెట్ రికాల్స్ ఎ టైమ్ వెన్ హీ వాస్ సో ఓవర్వెల్మ్డ్ విత్ ఎమోషన్ దట్ హీ ఫెల్ట్ నమ్ అండ్ డ్రీమ్ లైక్. సో ఆఫ్టర్ దిస్ గర్ల్ ఆర్ హిస్ బిలవెడ్ has departed from this world and merged with this nature, what happened? He has become so much overwhelmed with grief after his beloved departed from this world and merged with this nature. What happened? This poet has become overwhelmed with emotion. Emotion means what? Grief is an emotion. దుఃఖము చే అతడు ఓవర్వెల్మ్డ్, నింపబడ్డాడు. ఎంతగా నింపబడ్డాడంటే he felt numb and dream like. He became so numb. That means he was covered with numbness. After he learnt that his beloved passed away and merged with this nature. ఆ ప్రియురాలు చనిపోయి ఈ ప్రకృతిలో కలిసిపోయిందన్న ఆ దుర్వార్త తెలిసినప్పుడు, and what happened? He was overwhelmed with emotion. What kind of emotion? Grief is an emotion. దుఃఖము చే అతడు ఆవహించబడగా, what happened? He has felt that his whole body has become numb and dream like. Now you go to the next important point. He believes the woman he loves was timeless. The woman he loves, that means his beloved was timeless. Timeless means she was everlasting, she was eternal, because she has merged with nature, she has mixed up with nature. ప్రకృతిలో కలిసిపోయినప్పుడు ఆమె శాశ్వతంగా ప్రకృతిలో ఉండిపోతుంది, బికాస్ నేచర్ ఈజ్ పర్మనెంట్, నేచర్ ఈజ్ ఎవర్ లాస్టింగ్. సో ద బిలవెడ్ who has merged with that nature is also everlasting. ప్రకృతి శాశ్వతమైంది, మరి ఆ ప్రకృతిలో కలిసిపోయినటువంటి తన ప్రియురాలు కూడా మరి శాశ్వతమైనటువంటిది. అండ్ హియర్ he says that untouched by aging and death. That means she doesn't have what aging and death at all, because already she passed away, she died and she became merged with the nature. And how can she have aging? ఆమె చనిపోయి ప్రకృతితో కలిసిపోయిన తర్వాత how can she have aging? వయసు అనేది ఎలా ఉంటుంది? వయసు పెరుగుతుండదు కదా. సో దెర్ ఈజ్ నో ఏజింగ్ ఫర్ దిస్ బిలవెడ్ ఆర్ దెర్ ఇస్ నో డెత్ ఫర్ హర్. ఆల్రెడీ షీ డైడ్, విల్ దేర్ బి డెత్ అగైన్? చనిపోయిన తర్వాత మళ్ళీ డెత్ ఎక్కడి నుంచి వస్తుంది? సో దేర్ ఫోర్ అన్టచ్డ్ బై ఏజింగ్. Now this beloved has become everlasting, eternal and untouched by aging and death. ఆమె మరి చనిపోయి ప్రకృతిలో కలిసిపోయింది కాబట్టి, ఆమె శాశ్వతమైనటువంటి ప్రకృతితో కలిసిపోయింది కాబట్టి, అండ్ షీ ఈజ్ నాట్ టచ్డ్ బై ఏజింగ్. అండ్ వయసు పెరగడము చనిపోవడం అనేది ఆమెను ఏమీ చెయ్యజాలవు. షీ ఈజ్ అన్టచ్డ్ బై ఏజింగ్ అండ్ డెత్. దట్ మీన్స్ దే డోంట్ అఫెక్ట్ హర్. అవి ఆమెను ఏమి చెయ్యలేవు. అండ్ ఇన్ మై ఒరిజినల్ పోయమ్ ఐ హ్యావ్ ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్డ్ ఆల్ దీస్ థింగ్స్ వెరీ క్లియర్లీ, వెరీ ఎలాబొరేట్లీ. Please watch that original video. Okay, you can understand all these things because I have explained each and every line elaborately, okay, in detail, all right. And you move on to the next one. But now she is dead. This beloved of this poet has died. That means she is dead and her body has become part of the natural world. Already I have told you about that. The body of this beloved has become a part and parcel of this nature. It has become merged with this nature. ఈ ప్రకృతిలో ఒక భాగం అయిపోయింది ఆ యొక్క ప్రియురాలు, రైట్. అండ్ స్పిన్నింగ్ విత్ ద ఎర్త్. దట్ మీన్స్ షీ ఈజ్ మూవింగ్ అబౌట్ ద సన్ అలాంగ్ విత్ ద ఎర్త్. భూమితో పాటు, ఎందుకంటే ప్రకృతిలో కలిసిపోయిన ఆమె భూమితోనే ఉంటుంది కదా. సో భూమి సూర్యుని చుట్టూ తిరుగుతున్నప్పుడు ఈమె కూడా సూర్యుని చుట్టూ తిరుగుతూ ఉంటుంది. దట్స్ వై ఇట్ ఈస్ క్లియర్లీ సెడ్ స్పిన్నింగ్ మీన్స్ మూవింగ్ ఆర్ రొటేటింగ్ అలాంగ్ విత్ ద ఎర్త్, మోషన్లెస్. సో హియర్ లైక్ దట్. నౌ యు మూవ్ ఆన్ టు లెర్న్ other important points of this poem. This is yet another important point about the poem. There is a sharp contrast, sharp difference between the emotional detachment of the first stanza. In the first stanza, you can find the emotional detachment of his beloved. తన ప్రియురాలు ఎడబాటు గురించి చెబుతూ ఉన్నాడు in the first stanza. And in the second stanza, he tells us about the harsh reality, that is her death. What is the harsh reality? The death of his beloved. In the first stanza, the detachment of his beloved, that is the separation of his beloved. And in the second stanza, the death of his beloved. So in this way you can find the contrast between these two stanzas. And here you pay attention, the poem is a poignant reflection, very sharp reflection. Sharp reflection means sharp thinking on loss and mortality and the end of human emotion. It's a sharp thinking on what? On loss of human life, on the mortality. We are all mortals, we have death. That's why we suffer from mortality. So in this way, in this poem, three things the poet is dealing with. That is the loss of life, the mortality of life, the death of life. So these three things the poet is telling you in this poem. And next, it contrasts innocence and immortality with the finality of death. So here he tells us in this poem about the innocence of man, okay, about man, and he also tells about immortality with the finality of death. So here he talks about innocence of man. He also talks about the immortality with the finality of death. That means death makes natural things immortal, because God's creation is immortal. Only human beings are mortal. Okay, you know very well. So in this way, in this poem, the poet tells us about the innocence and also about the immortality with the finality of death, right? And you move on to the last point, that is it uses nature to express permanence and calm after loss. So here nature is used to indicate permanence or everlastingness. That means the poet is using nature to tell us that it is permanent. So therefore, after the death of our own people, we have to remain calm and we have to just keep quiet. Because this nature is permanent, whereas the human beings are not permanent. In this way, these are all the very important points about the poem. Okay, and now let's move on to learn about other important things of the poem. Themes. What are the themes of this poem? Let us have a glance at it. Death and immortality. So death and immortality, this can be the major theme of this poem. A slumber did my spirit seal. Okay, all human beings have death, but nature does not have death. It has got immortality. So therefore, death and immortality must be the major theme of this poem. Okay, and another theme is also there: loss and detachment. In this human life, we are supposed to lose our own people when to get detached from them. మన వాళ్ళని మనం కోల్పోవాల్సి వస్తుంది, వారి నుంచి మనం డిటాచ్ అవ్వాల్సి వస్తుంది. కాబట్టి హియర్ ద పోయిట్ హ్యాస్ లాస్ట్ హిస్ బిలవెడ్ అండ్ హీ హాస్ బికమ్ డిటాచ్డ్ ఫ్రమ్ హర్ because of this death. So here therefore the theme can be loss and detachment. Okay, and here you pay attention: nature's permanence. This can also be the theme of this poem, because nature is permanent, nature is everlasting. So this can be the theme of this can be, so any one of them can be the theme of this poem. A slumber did my spirit see. And you move on to the tone. What could be the tone of this poem? Calm. The tone of the poem is calm and it is detached, because this poet is not getting himself attached to anybody, because he has lost his beloved. Okay, she is no more now, she has become merged with nature, and that's why the tone of this poem is detached and solemn, very serious. And here it is meditative, because all the human beings are supposed to die. They have to merge with nature one day or the other. ఏదో ఒక రోజు మనం అందరం ఈ ప్రకృతిలో కలిసిపోవాల్సిందే, బికాస్ వీ హ్యావ్ కమ్ ఇన్ టు దిస్ వరల్డ్ ఫ్రమ్ నేచర్. ప్రకృతి నుంచి మనం వచ్చాం కాబట్టి తిరిగి ప్రకృతిలోకి వెళ్ళిపోవాలి. ప్రకృతి శాశ్వతమైంది, ఇలాంటి విషయాలు చెబుతున్నారు. సో హియర్ ద టోన్ ఆఫ్ ద పోయం ఇస్ కామ్, detached, solemn and meditative. And you move on to the last point of the poem: rhyme scheme. What is the rhyme scheme of this poem? Let us see that. AB, AB in both stanzas, 2 quatrains are there. 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. So this is the poem. So AB, A B, A B. Here again A B, A B. So this is the rhyme scheme. You know that very well. If you can observe the poem, you can find this. And please try to watch the original video. And in that video, I have explained so many beautiful things. Okay, and with this poem, A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal, will come to an end. And now, basing on these 2 poems, I would like to give you a small exercise so that you can check your comprehension of these 2 poems. Okay, multiple choice questions. Okay, and here I will read out the question and also the options. Please, you have to choose the right answer on your own. Right. Who wrote the poem The Road Not Taken? The options given here are William Wordsworth, Robert Frost, W.B. Yeats, John Keats. And you move on to the next question. Who is the poet of A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal? William Wordsworth, Emily Dickinson, Robert Frost, Sarojini Naidu. Okay, and now let's move on to other questions. Third question. In The Road Not Taken, what does the speaker come across in the woods? A flowing river, a fork in the road, a group of travelers, a fallen tree. Go to the fourth question. What happened to the girl in A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal? She moved to another place. She became immortal. She died. She fell into a deep sleep. Fifth question. Why does the speaker regret in The Road Not Taken? He is lost in the woods. He took the more dangerous road. He knows he cannot travel both roads. He followed someone else's advice. Sixth question. What does the poet mean by no motion has she now, no force? The girl is sleeping. She is paralyzed. She is dead and beyond life's physical forces. She is motionless with fear. Seventh question. What is the central theme of The Road Not Taken? Loss and sorrow, nature and animals, choices and their consequences, friendship and unity. Eighth question. The main theme of A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal is time and death, romance and adventure, childhood and innocence, travel and discovery. Ninth question. The Road Not Taken explores the idea that life has no direction. All roads lead to success. Every decision shapes one's future. Regret should always be avoided. 10th question. Which of these best captures the theme of A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal? Celebration of a wedding, exploration of nature, finality of death and loss, dreams and fantasies. 11th question. The tone of the road not taken is joyful and festive, light and humorous, reflective and thoughtful, angry and regretful. 12th question. The tone of A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal is comic and light-hearted, mournful and calm, optimistic and cheerful, harsh and rude. 13th question. What is the rhyme scheme of The Road Not Taken? AB AB, AA BB, AB AAB, ABCD. Please, in my second video, that is now in my previous video, I have made a little mistake of choosing the wrong option. But you know very well, you have listened to the poem, you have listened to the rest of the video, and therefore even if I make a mistake, you should not make a mistake. You have to correct it on your own, please. Okay, if at all, if there is any mistake, you have to correct it on your own, please. But only you bring it to my notice, you bring that mistake to my notice. I will just pin that information to the video so that others can read it and understand that. Okay, and here 14th question. Which rhyme scheme is followed in A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal? ABBA, ABCB, AABB, ABAB. 15th question. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood contains which poetic device? Simile, hyperbole, metaphor, alliteration. 16th question. Which literary device is used in She Seemed a Thing That Could Not Feel the Touch of Earthly Ears? Simile, personification, irony, metaphor. 17th question. How many stanzas are there in The Road Not Taken? 3, 4, 5, 2. 18th question. A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal consists of how many stanzas? 4, 1, 3, 2. 19th question. What message does Frost convey through The Road Not Taken? Always take the easiest path. One's life is shaped by the choices one makes. Paths are meaningless in life. Roads always lead back to the same point. 20th question. What is the poet's realization in A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal? Life is eternal. Death is peaceful and natural. The spirit can wander after death. Death is frightening and confusing. 21st question. What does the yellow wood in the road not taken symbolize? What does this yellow wood symbolize? Autumn and maturity, confusion in life, a magical forest, eternal youth. 22nd question. In A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal, what does the word slumber metaphorically represent? Rest after a journey, forgetfulness or emotional numbness due to grief, laziness, a peaceful sleep before a celebration. 23rd question. In The Road Not Taken, what does the speaker predict he will say with a sigh? He was lost in the woods. He should have chosen differently. That taking the road less traveled made all the difference. That both roads were the same. The last but one question. What contrast is presented between the two stanzas in A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal? Happiness and joy, dream and reality, life and death, wealth and poverty, darkness and brightness. Now you move on to the last question. The last question, the 25th question. What poetic form does A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal belong to? Ballad, sonnet, lyric, ode. So with this small exercise will come to an end. Now let's move on to look at the answers for all these questions. So these are the answers for the questions from 1 to 10. These are the answers for the questions from 11 to 20. These are the answers for the questions from 21 to 25. With this small video will come to an end. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hello, dear DSC candidates. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any problem in understanding any of the things that I have dealt with in this video, please make a mention of it in the comment section. And with another beautiful video, I shall be back to you. Until then, bye. See you, all of you.